"Let me get this straight," Harry Hedd said, leaning back in the plush, overly cushioned chair, clearly not designed for a human spine. He adjusted his well-worn fedora and raised a skeptical eyebrow at the glittering avian alien across the table. "You brought me here, across half the galaxy, because someone is stealing starship designs." The avian, a sleek figure with iridescent feathers and a tight beak, fluffed up indignantly. "Not just someone, Detective Hedd. A traitor, a spy, a shadow lurking among us." Harry pinched the bridge of his nose. "Sure, but what I don't get is why I'm here. I mean, the last case I cracked was—" He paused dramatically, tilting his fedora down to shadow his eyes. "The Great Coffee Caper." The alien blinked, its feathers dimming slightly in confusion. "You caught a thief stealing coffee?" Harry leaned forward, smirking. "Oh, not just some coffee. We're talking 2 years' worth of premium roasted beans, valued at roughly the cost of 2 interstellar cruisers, and they were taking it cup by cup." The alien blinked again, slowly. "I fail to see how that qualifies you to investigate galactic treason." "Don't worry," Harry said, waving a hand dismissively. "I've got this. Besides, you called me, remember?" The room was a masterpiece of alien architecture, all shimmering curves and glowing panels. Harry stood in the center, his worn trench coat looking utterly out of place, as the avian officer, Commander Gyrus, gestured at a holographic display of their complex starbase. "For months, critical information has been leaking to our enemies," Gyrus explained. "Blueprints, fleet movements, advanced technologies, all compromised." Harry's gaze wandered to the shimmering holographic map. "And you've ruled out basic stuff? Leaky comms? Sloppy security?" Gyrus puffed up indignantly. "We are the Velarim. Our systems are flawless." Harry rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Flawless systems don't tend to hire human detectives." Gyrus opened their beak to retort, then closed it with a sharp snap. The silence was all the answer Harry needed. Harry didn't bother diving into the meticulous labyrinthine security logs that the Velarim investigators had pored over for months. "Too much noise," he muttered to himself. Instead, he strolled through the starbase's corridors, taking in the bustling activity, the chatter of alien officers, and the faint hum of advanced technology. His first stop was the cafeteria, where a group of Velarim officers huddled around their meals. He pulled up a chair, earning a few skeptical glances. "So," he began, casually picking at a plate of what he assumed were edible food cubes. "Heard any good gossip lately?" The officers exchanged confused glances. "Gossip?" one finally asked. "Yeah, you know, rumors, office drama, who's dating who keeps accidentally leaving sensitive documents lying around." The aliens blinked, their confusion palpable. Harry grinned. "Never mind. I'll find out soon enough." Harry wasted no time deploying his signature investigative techniques. The accidental top-secret document leak. He misplaced a fake starship blueprint on a shared terminal, one rigged to alert him the second someone accessed it. Sure enough, it pinged within hours. Someone had downloaded it from a supposedly restricted account. The Interdepartmental gossip game. He planted vague, tantalizing rumors among different departments, each with slightly conflicting details about a new, top-secret tech development. When the enemy intercepted one of these fabricated stories, Harry narrowed down which department the leak originated from. The sudden tech upgrade. He installed an inconspicuous surveillance module into a widely used communication hub, disguised as a standard system upgrade. Velarim officers grumbled about the mandatory patch, but within a day, the module captured suspicious activity, encrypted messages leaving the station at odd hours. The mandatory team-building exercise. Harry organized a trust-building workshop for the station's senior staff. While the Velarim awkwardly paired up for exercises like shared problem-solving and two-beak relay races, Harry used the distraction to covertly analyze their personal terminals. 3 days into the investigation, Harry's surveillance flagged a peculiar anomaly. One officer, a quiet Velarim with muted plumage, had accessed the fake blueprint, spread one of the fabricated rumors, and transmitted an encrypted message off-station. Harry followed the trail to a private docking bay where the suspect was preparing to board a small, nondescript vessel. With a flick of his wrist, Harry activated his comm. "Commander Gyrus, you might want to meet me at Docking Bay 12. I've got your spy." The Velarim officer froze as Harry stepped out of the shadows, his trench coat billowing dramatically. "I've got to hand it to you," Harry said, his tone almost conversational. "You were good, but you underestimated one thing." The officer's feathers ruffled nervously. "And what's that?" Harry grinned, tipping his hat. "Humans always know when something feels off." The captured Velarim officer sat in a stark interrogation chamber, their muted plumage dull under the artificial light. Harry leaned back in his chair, feet propped on the table, flipping through a holographic file with exaggerated nonchalance. "So," Harry drawled, glancing up, "you want to tell me how you ended up with a copy of those fake blueprints? Or should we skip to the part where you try to lie about it?" The officer's feathers twitched, but they remained silent, their golden eyes narrowing. "All right, the quiet type," Harry muttered, lowering his feet and leaning forward. "Let me guess. You didn't think anyone would catch on because everyone here follows the rules to the letter. You're the invisible cog in the perfect machine." The officer's silence was answer enough. Harry smirked. "The thing is, I don't do perfect. I do messy. And you? You left a mess." He pulled up a holographic display of the officer's activity logs, the glowing data filling the air. Downloading sensitive files, forwarding encrypted messages, sneaking around the docking bays. Sloppy work, really. For the first time, the Velarim spoke, their voice low and sharp. "You have no proof." Harry tapped a button on the display, projecting an intercepted message. "Funny thing about encrypted communications, they're like puzzles to humans, and we're really good at puzzles." Commander Gyrus paced outside the interrogation room, her feathers puffed with frustration. She turned to her second-in-command, a stoic reptilian officer. "What if he's wrong? This human, his methods are chaotic." The reptilian officer tilted their head. "His chaos is effective, Commander. Already, he has uncovered more than we managed in months." Gyrus paused, her gaze flicking toward the one-way glass of the interrogation room. Inside, Harry leaned back in his chair, gesturing animatedly as he spoke. "Humans are unpredictable," she muttered, "and unpredictability is dangerous." "Perhaps," the reptilian officer replied, "but it is also necessary." Harry wasn't done. While the Velarim officer maintained their silence, he launched into his next move, producing a recording of the officer accessing a secure terminal during the mandatory tech upgrade. The Velarim's feathers flared briefly in alarm before they quickly composed themselves. Anyone could have accessed that terminal. "Sure," Harry agreed, leaning forward with a grin. "Except for this little detail. Only your workstation has the unique key signature that matched the encrypted transmission. Funny how that works." The Velarim's composure cracked, their eyes darting nervously. "You don't understand." "Try me," Harry interrupted, his voice losing its usual levity. "Because the way I see it, you sold out your own people, and I'm dying to know why." The Velarim officer's shoulders slumped. "You wouldn't understand," they said bitterly. "The Concord is broken, rigid, blind to its flaws. Our enemies offered change, freedom." Harry tilted his head. "Freedom? You mean the freedom to sell out your own kind?" "Yeah, sounds real liberating." The Velarim's feathers bristled, but they didn't deny it. "It's too late. The information is already out there." Harry's grin returned, sharp and knowing. "Oh, you mean the fake blueprints? The decoy fleet movements?" "Yeah, I made sure your friends got those. Can't wait to see what they do with them." The Velarim's eyes widened in horror. You lied." "I improvised," Harry corrected, standing up and adjusting his trench coat. "Humans are funny like that." As Harry exited the interrogation room, Commander Gyrus was waiting for him, her expression unreadable. "You've caught the spy," she said, her voice carefully measured. "But this isn't over, is it?" Harry shook his head. "Nope. That leak was too easy. Someone else is pulling the strings. The question is—" He paused dramatically, tipping his hat. "Are you ready for what happens when humans start poking around?" Harry Hedd stood in the Concord's Central Intelligence Hub, a massive circular room lined with glowing panels and holographic displays. The Velarim officers bustled around him, their movements precise and purposeful, but Harry's unhurried demeanor stood out like a sore thumb. "All right," he said, clapping his hands together. "We've got our mole. Now we figure out who they were working with. Let's see that data." Commander Gyrus hesitated. "Detective Hedd, this facility contains some of our most sensitive—" Yeah, top-secret alien intel. Don't worry, I won't snoop." He leaned in conspiratorially, lowering his voice. "Much." Gyrus sighed and gestured to a console. "Begin with the suspect's communications logs." Harry cracked his knuckles and got to work. The Velarim interface was a mess of glyphs and glowing streams of data, but Harry bypassed the manual almost instinctively. Within minutes, he had isolated the suspect's communications and pulled up a network of contacts. "Bingo," he muttered, highlighting several encrypted channels. "These aren't just one-off messages. This is a whole web." Harry's next move was to flush out the rest of the network. He devised a plan that made the Velarim officers visibly uncomfortable, a fake mission involving fabricated fleet movements and a high-value cargo shipment. The details were carefully planted in locations accessible only to potential collaborators. "This is reckless," Gyrus said, watching Harry set the trap with alarming enthusiasm. "Reckless gets results," Harry replied with a grin. "Trust me, someone's going to bite." Within hours, one of the suspect channels lit up with activity. Harry's surveillance flagged the message instantly, details of the fake mission being transmitted off-station. "Gotcha," he muttered, marking the source of the transmission. "Let's see who you're talking to." The Velarim team traced the message to an officer in logistics, a quiet, unassuming individual who had gone unnoticed until now. Harry cornered them in the docking bay, catching them mid-message. "Hey there," he said, stepping out from the shadows. "Funny place to be sending classified data." The logistics officer froze, their feathers puffing in panic. I don't know what you mean." Harry held up a small device, a recording of the outgoing transmission playing on loop. "You really shouldn't leave such an obvious trail. Makes my job too easy." The officer bolted, but Harry was faster, tackling them to the ground with surprising agility. "Nice try," he said, pinning them down. "But humans are good at more than just talking." Back in the intelligence hub, the captured logistics officer's data revealed an alarming truth. The conspiracy extended far beyond the station. Coordinated efforts to leak information suggested a well-organized network operating across multiple Concord facilities. "This isn't just a spy ring," Harry said, pacing in front of a glowing display. "This is a whole operation." Gyrus's feathers fluffed nervously. "Can it be stopped?" Harry stopped pacing, turning to face her with a confident grin. "Oh, it can be stopped. The question is, how much mess are you willing to tolerate?" As Harry began piecing together the network, a new transmission came through the Concord's secure channels. It was encrypted, but not for long. Harry's face darkened as the message decoded, revealing coordinates for a massive enemy fleet mobilizing on the edge of Velarim space. "Looks like your spy network isn't just leaking secrets," he said grimly. "They're coordinating an attack." Gyrus stiffened. "How much time do we have?" Harry tipped his hat, his grin returning despite the tension. "Enough to remind them why humans are the galaxy's wild card." The intelligence hub buzzed with activity as officers scrambled to analyze the enemy fleet's mobilization. Harry Hedd stood at the center, his presence a calm anchor in the chaos. "We can't just sit here and let them roll over you," he said, pointing at the holographic map showing enemy movements. "They're expecting you to react like you always do, methodically, predictably. But what happens if you don't?" Commander Gyrus frowned, her feathers ruffling. "What do you propose, Detective?" Harry smirked, his eyes glinting with mischief. A good old-fashioned bait and switch. Harry's plan was unorthodox, to say the least. Using a fleet of unmanned drones equipped with holographic projectors, he proposed creating a decoy fleet to lure the enemy into a trap. The real Concord fleet would then ambush them from an unexpected angle. "This is madness," Gyrus muttered, as Harry outlined his strategy. "Madness?" Harry grinned, tapping the holographic map. "No, this is humanity." The Velarim officers hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Gyrus finally nodded. "Very well, we'll do it your way." The decoy fleet launched, a dazzling array of holographic projections shimmering against the void of space. From a distance, it was indistinguishable from the real thing. Harry watched from the bridge of the Concord flagship, a sly grin on his face. "They're biting," a Velarim technician announced, their voice tinged with awe. "The enemy is redirecting their forces." "Good," Harry said, leaning back in his chair. "Now let's give them a warm welcome." As the enemy fleet closed in on the decoy, the real Concord fleet emerged from hyperspace behind them, cutting off their retreat. The Velarim ships opened fire, their energy cannons lighting up the void with precision strikes. Harry stood on the bridge, barking orders with a mix of authority and irreverent humor. "Focus fire on their command ships, and for the love of coffee, someone cover that cruiser." The battle was chaotic, but decisive. The enemy fleet, caught off guard, crumbled under the Concord's assault. Harry's plan had worked perfectly. In the aftermath of the battle, Harry turned his attention back to the spy network. Using data recovered from the captured spies, he traced the operation to its source, an isolated base hidden in a nearby asteroid field. "This is it," he told Gyrus, his tone serious. "We cut off the head, and the body dies." The Concord fleet mobilized once more, striking the enemy base with precision. Inside, they found the mastermind of the spy network, a shadowy figure who sneered at Harry as they were dragged into custody. "You humans are a nuisance," the figure hissed, "always meddling." Harry tipped his hat. "Meddling's kind of our thing." As the mastermind was escorted away, Harry noticed a peculiar device among the confiscated equipment. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen before, and it pulsed faintly with an ominous glow. Commander," he called out, "you might want to take a look at this." Gyrus approached, her feathers bristling as she studied the device. "What is it?" Harry's grin faded, replaced by a rare look of concern. "I don't know, but I've got a bad feeling about it." Harry Hedd stood in the Concord's research lab, staring at the strange, glowing device recovered from the enemy base. The lab buzzed with activity as Velarim scientists analyzed the artifact, their beaks clicking in nervous conversation. "It's some kind of signal generator," one of the scientists said, their voice trembling. "But the frequencies are unusual." "Unusual how?" Harry asked, leaning closer. The scientist hesitated. "They're resonating with something outside the known spectrum. It could be a weapon or a beacon." Harry's brow furrowed. A beacon for what? The question hung heavy in the air. As the Concord fleet prepared for the possibility of a larger conflict, Harry worked alongside Commander Gyrus to piece together the data recovered from the enemy base. What they discovered sent a chill through the room. "The enemy we've been fighting," Gyrus began, her voice unsteady, "isn't acting alone." Harry leaned over the glowing map of the sector, tracing the connections with a fingertip. "Looks like they've got friends in high places. And this beacon? It's calling them." A technician turned from their console. "We've intercepted a transmission. The beacon has already been activated." "Fantastic," Harry muttered, straightening his coat. "Guess we're having company." The Concord fleet mobilized to intercept the incoming threat. Harry stood on the bridge of the flagship, surrounded by a mix of alien officers who now looked to him for guidance. The holographic display showed a massive enemy fleet emerging from hyperspace, their ships bristling with unfamiliar weaponry. "This isn't just a fight," Gyrus said, her voice low. "It's survival." Harry nodded, his usual humor replaced with quiet determination. Good thing humans are great at those. As the battle began, Harry directed the fleet with a combination of strategy and sheer audacity. The enemy ships were larger and more advanced, but the Concord's adaptability and Harry's improvisation gave them an edge. "Send the drones into their flank," Harry ordered, pacing the bridge. "Make it look like a retreat." "But," a technician began, only to be silenced by Gyrus's sharp gesture. "They're not retreating," Harry continued, grinning as the enemy took the bait. "They're regrouping, and when they do—" The holographic display lit up as the drones detonated, crippling a significant portion of the enemy fleet. The bridge erupted in cheers. Despite their successes, the Concord fleet was outmatched. The enemy's flagship, a colossal vessel bristling with weapons, loomed over the battlefield. Harry knew they needed to end the fight quickly. "Commander," he said, turning to Gyrus, "we're going to board that thing." Her feathers flared in shock. "Are you mad?" "Probably," Harry admitted, "but it's our best shot." Harry led a small strike team onto the enemy flagship, weaving through its labyrinthine corridors. The team encountered fierce resistance, but Harry's quick thinking and unconventional tactics kept them moving. They reached the control center, where the enemy commander, a towering figure encased in gleaming armor, waited for them. "You've meddled enough, human," the commander snarled. Harry smirked, pulling out a small, modified device. "You know, meddling is kind of my thing." With a press of a button, the device emitted a high-pitched whine, disrupting the flagship's systems. Alarms blared as the ship's weapons powered down, leaving it vulnerable to the Concord fleet. Back on the Concord flagship, Harry watched as the enemy fleet retreated, their flagship now a glowing wreck. The bridge was filled with cheers, but Harry's expression was pensive. "What's eating you?" Gyrus asked, approaching him. Harry gestured to the holographic display. This wasn't just a random invasion. It was coordinated, planned. And that beacon? We haven't seen the last of it. Gyrus nodded slowly. "Then we'll be ready." Harry smirked, tipping his hat. "Good, because if there's one thing humans love, it's an underdog story." Months later, Harry returned to Earth, his reputation as the galaxy's most unconventional detective firmly cemented. As he sipped his coffee on a quiet balcony overlooking a bustling city, his communicator buzzed with a new message. "Detective Hedd, your assistance is required. Urgently." Harry sighed, setting down his mug. Guess retirement can wait. With a grin, he grabbed his coat and hat, ready for whatever chaos awaited him next.